Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where we just failed to reach Moho. And the reason we failed to reach it was interesting, for sure. Let's hop into the VAB and talk about it a bit, and what we're going to do about it. There are a couple of things that we need to do about it, I suspect. So let's go ahead and open up our Moho lander. It's a bit of a monstrosity, no doubt about it. Okay, so we get all of this ready to go, right? That is all fine. So with this all loaded up, we can take a look at what we've got here. Now, this stage here, this interplanetary transfer stage, is definitely weak. And this stage up here is very heavy. So there is that. What we can immediately talk about doing is popping this off and replacing it with a smaller variant. But I believe we upgraded it because we wouldn't have the thrust to weight on Moho. I believe that was the concern previously. So this is, what size is this? This is an X232? Okay. So we could definitely consider downgrading this even further. So what I would consider doing is detaching this guy and then ditching this entire lander. And let's just start over from scratch. So we're going to do that. I'm going to get rid of this as well. The entire lander we're going to redo from scratch. I would like to not have to redesign this portion or add anything to it. We'll see what ends up happening with this. This is a fuel tank, yes? Yes, okay. So we're going to need a decoupler here. Absolutely. We'll need a TD25 decoupler, but I actually want to adapt this down even smaller. I want this to be a significantly smaller lander. So we're going to take this to, not that. We need a medium adapter. Is this a fueled adapter? Yes, it is. So we're going to take it down like this. Okay. Now we're going to have this be a TS12 stack decoupler, or rather TD12 stack decoupler. Then on top of that, I'm going to put in an engine. So this is simply going to be, let's see, we're not even going to have a poodle here. This would be a Terrier engine. So something like that. Okay, now that is going to be based off of some smaller fuel tanks. So like a T400, maybe even something like a T200 on top of that. Like that. Yeah, something along those lines. Now, I would like to have a payload bay here. And we're going to put in cargo bay. Yeah, this is very long. I don't actually want it to be that long. So a cargo bay is something like this. I would like to return this, though. So we're going to have a decoupler here. So it's a TD12. And then I do want to have a heat shield here. So the heat shield is going to go here, like that. Then we have the service bay. And then we're going to have our lander. Now, do we have any two-seater landers here? It doesn't matter. We don't need a two-seater lander. We could just have a Mark I Explorer like this. It's a little on the large side, perhaps. I'm wondering what the weight differential is here. Yeah, this is a little bit heavier, but it also has better re-entry. I'm going to bring the tin can. So the tin can is going to go right here. Okay, so something along those lines. Then we're, of course, going to need to have some sort of power on this. So I'm just going to do some small solar panels. We're going to do, actually, only 2 of them, I feel like. And we're going to put them here. Are these retractable? I think these are not the retractable variant. We do need retractable. So it would be something like that. Cool. Now, parachutes. Parachutes are definitely something we're going to want on here. Also, potentially a nose cone. Although, I'm thinking about what if this was some sort of a fueled nose cone. I'm not sure if such a thing exists. No, I think we would just have to have a regular old nose cone on here. So that would end up, or we could decide to put in the air sniffer on top of there. It doesn't quite fit, but it could work. I mean, we're going somewhere without an atmosphere, so this would only be useful on Kerbin. But we could certainly open up our cargo bay here. Okay, I want to change possibly where these are connected. Possibly where they're connected. Also, radiation surveys, probably not going to be a thing. Does this require any crew? It does not. But it's huge. I don't think we'll bring that along. we've got a Science Junior here, and that could definitely go on top here. So the Science Junior would go about there. That seems fine. Then we can have our Sample Grabber, which maybe we'd leave behind up over here, or maybe we would just attach, like, out over here. Like that. So the Sample Grabber would go about there. I don't know if it would actually do anything. 10-second duration. Yeah, I believe it does work. Okay, so the Science Junior, huh? That's the radial variant. So this is all of the science that we actually have available right now. And that seems good. So we'll just close that. And I suppose we could put this inside, but I don't want to do that for right now. So now we need to create our actual landing system. And I still want this to be significantly coupled here. I'm thinking, what if we actually did this in 6 couplings here? So something like this. And then I'm not sure if we're going to have enough space for this. Let's find out. I'm just going to grab a T800 for these for now, just to see if we have the space. Kind of. We kind of have the space. This is clipping for sure. We would want to change this and have it go, I don't know, somewhere like here. Something kind of along the lines of that. Then we'd want to have these engines go here, right? Now, I have no idea if this is going to end up lifting. So that's going to be interesting. We could put an aerodynamic nose cone on here. It would end up being like that. Although I kind of don't want to carry the weight. How much weight is that? 0.051 tons. So we multiply that by 6, so that's like 0.3 tons. I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal. Okay. So, obviously this staging is completely messed up at this point, right? No doubt about it, the staging is completely and totally messed up. This stage goes all the way at the bottom. Okay. And then we have these SRBs detach. So they would end up going here. There we go. And then we would have these center boosters detach. So this is going to be a lot less weight up here. Like, this is a whole lot less weight. I'm not entirely certain how much DV we've got in it, but it should hopefully be a significant improvement, especially in this stage, but we can definitely feel that out as we go through. So this is all relatively fine, of course. So I'm just wondering right now, actually, let's just go through all of this staging really quickly here. So, trying to zoom this out a little bit more. Okay, something along the lines of this. So these burn, yep, and these internal engines all fire at the same time. That looks good. These 6 fire, and we detach the side tanks. Now, I'm a little concerned about these detachments still. I had some issues with it off camera with our previous launch, so we'll see how clean those end up going. Next up, of course, is not going to be these 6 engines. These 6 engines are going to be significantly later. So we want to have, what's this decoupling? That's up here. Okay, this is definitely not the decouples that we want. So these are going to be merged together. This stage is, of course, going to go down here. Like this. Although, it actually goes up top. Yeah, like that. So we decouple that, fire this, and then these guys fire at the same time as the decoupler here. So it'd be something like this. And then that engine fires. We could have all of these engines be firing together, though, and just run the fuel in. And that's probably what we're going to end up doing. So this would fire at the same time as this. And then we'd want to have fuel lines flowing in. So that would be fuel lines out here, and they would connect in like so. Like that. Then, I would want to make sure that these are strutted together. So we would strut them here. And then here. And then here. Making sure they're just nice and solid. And then here. Okay. So that should be strutted together pretty well at this point. Now, we need to think about thrust to weight and DV. Our thrust to weight should be significantly improved here. So that is very, very good. Let's take a quick look at expanding these out. 1.66, that's definitely a little higher. 9.15 up here, 1.54. I don't think this is strictly accurate. What we're really interested in right now is over Moho, this stage has 1.48 thrust to weight. Okay, that's theoretically doable. But also, it's a little confused about how much DV we have here. There's no doubt about that. So this fuel flows in, and this would separate out and would leave us with just this engine firing, with this at full fuel. So this stage here should be a lot longer of a burn. This here should have no burn at all. I'm not sure. This is apparently burning all of the fuel out of this stage simultaneously without detaching. This is not the way that this actually works. So stage 4, our interplanetary transfer stage, has quintupled its amount of delta V from this, though. So that looks good. I want to put this out on the pad and run some tests on it. I am concerned about the detachment of all of this nonsense. I'm also a little bit concerned about the quantity of delta V here, but I think that this is not strictly speaking accurate. So let's run some tests here and see how this is going to go. We are down to only a 1-seater from a 2-seater, but this is a significantly lighter payload across the board. And things should, in theory, go significantly better. Okay. You ready to do this, Jeb? It thinks we have 0 meters per second. It's wrong. Let's run a quick test and see how this goes. Things that we are looking to test is detachment here. Once we get into orbit, I want to verify the delta V of this stage. And then I also want to verify delta V numbers up here. So we'll have to get to orbit to do that. Let's lift this thing off. We're going to skip the countdown. This is a test flight. We're not actually going here. It feels very slow off the pad, but because it's a test flight, let's put it into 4x and let's just put this into straight up. Yes, the frame rate is not going to be pretty. That is for sure. Okay. Verifying our fuel drain, that all looks good for the time being. Staging should be relatively okay, although I realize that we didn't add parachutes. That is something that we should do in the final version of this, no doubt about that. Okay, so this frame rate is not pretty, that's for sure, but we are going through this at 4x speed, so that is absolutely fine for this simulation. I'm noting a little bit of oscillation, but that's normal. Yeah, this frame rate at 4x is very not pretty. That's okay. We just need to get through this early boost portion and see how these detachments go. That oscillation is not ideal, that's for sure, but I'm going to continue boosting through this. Yeah, that oscillation could cause a significant detachment problem. Okay, the oscillation will likely come under control better once we exit the 4x time warp. So we're about halfway through our solid fuel here. And let's let that just continue to drop for the moment. I'm keeping an eye on our apoapsis here. We definitely have higher thrust to weight than we did before. This oscillation that we're seeing here, it looks pretty extreme when we're looking at it here. When we're looking at it here, it's less extreme, and it won't be as big of a deal when we're not doing the 4x warp, which is probably good. We're just going to go straight up here for now. I'm going to drop out of the 4x time acceleration once we're at about 10-ish tons remaining on the solid fuel. But anyway we slice it, this rocket is kind of slow to get into orbit. I'm quite concerned at this moment about detachment. So we might have to redo our bottom stages here as well. We'll see how that ends up going. It's a monstrosity as it is right now, so that is definitely a thing. Let's take it down to 1x time warp and see about settling ourselves in here. We can see our apoapsis is quite high right now. We've just gone straight up, and that is expected. Okay, let's see about getting that oscillation under control. And the question is, how clean is this detachment? I don't expect this to be tremendously clean. Oh, wow. Hang on. That's not what we're looking for. Okay, so, that's exciting. Cool. We're going to take that back to the VAB. I was concerned about the detachment, but we ended up detaching our inner cores instead of our SRBs there. That is funny. So I'm not entirely sure why that happened. Was I very, very, very dumb? I might have been. I very well might have been incredibly dumb with that one. Okay. What do we got going on here? Yep. These just need to be flipped. Cool. Okay, so we'll save that, and we'll put it back out on the pad. I'm not going to make you watch through the entire burn phase of those SRBs again. It's kind of painful at 4X. It's a bit of a slideshow, and it still takes like 2 minutes to burn through, which is kind of insane. So I'm going to launch this, but I'll bring you guys back in about the same time as we're ready to ditch the fuel here. See you guys in just a moment. Okay, so here we are most of the way through our SRB burn, and let's see how this detachment goes. I've done everything exactly the same up until this point, although I think that I exited the 4X warp slightly earlier. Yeah, I definitely did. We've got about 10 tons of solid rocket fuel in each of these. Again, I am not expecting this to go well. This SRB detachment is a spicy one, and let's see how that goes. So we've got about 5 tons left. We're still just going straight up here. I'm keeping an eye on our apoapsis. That's very interesting. Okay, 1 ton left, and SRBs are out. We're doing the detachment. I expect this to go poorly. Oh, wow, that went very poorly indeed. Yep, that went incredibly poorly. So that is what I expected. Right there. See how we lost this engine and a fuel tank? Yeah, it's not great. That's a pretty normal thing. So we're going to need to revert that back to the VAB. And what we need to do right now is we need to change, I think, the attachment point of where those SRBs are attached. So we need to just kind of overhaul the entire SRB system here. So let's bring this right back in. And I'm reasonably content with these. I think I've figured out a good way to cleanly detach those. But I want to detach all of these SRBs in their entirety right now. So we're going to get rid of 2 of those. Apparently we're back up top now. And I want to grab this SRB right about here. Yeah, I want to have it be centrally located here. And I want to put it in about here. I want this in 6x symmetry. No, 6x symmetry. There you go. And I want to attach it right to this decoupler, basically dead center on the decoupler. Now what I want to do is I want to take the decoupler itself, and I'm going to get rid of these decouplers. I want to take the decoupler itself, and I want to move this down to about here. Okay. Now I want to redo the strutting. So this strut is going to connect about here, and this fuel line is going to connect about here. Then down here, I want to make sure that there's a strut down here, and it looks like there is no strut there. Okay, now I'm wondering how halfway is that? It's pretty halfway. Also, I reduced the impulse on this previously to 200 kilonewtons. I'm going to bring it back up. The problem previously was it was attached up at the top, which caused it to kick outward and caused this to impact our engines because the engines didn't have enough thrust to weight to clear it before this kicked in. However, this is going to kick it more straight outward at this point, and we're hoping that that ends up doing the trick. So now I'm going to run a strut out this way and make sure that that's connected. Then we're going to redo, what do we got going on up here? Oh, this is unconnected at this point. Okay, I'm not sure why that disconnected, but whatever. We'll reconnect it like that. Okay, cool. We don't have any of these disconnected, right? No. Good. Cool. So now what I want to do is I want to grab this guy. Actually, I'm going to save this in case I accidentally disconnect everything again. But we're going to do that. I'm going to duplicate this, and then we're going to place that guy right about here. Okay. I don't like that positioning. I'm going to unsnap this, and we're going to change that positioning. So this is going to end up being about here. Now I'm going to duplicate that again, and we're going to take it over. Oh, I didn't actually grab it, and I didn't actually duplicate it there. We're going to put it about here. Now I want to duplicate it, and I want to put one in over on this side. Now we can see these are kind of clipped together. That is not necessarily surprising. We're going to have to make some alterations to these positions. Okay, right about there or so. So obviously this one here needs to be moved in. That's okay. We can definitely do that. So I want to grab this guy, and I want to move it in over here. They're clipping together a little bit on the bottom, but that's okay. Now I want to move this one out ever so slightly, because it's a little too close together for my taste. Oh, come here. Gotcha. Okay. Now I want this guy to go about here or so. Okay. So these are pretty tightly packed, no doubt about it, but I'm hoping that that is going to be a significantly better outcome. So these all need to be grouped together, right? Yeah, these all get grouped together. These all get grouped together. These guys go here. And then these stages don't exist. About like that. So let's double check this staging. This is looking good at this point. Yeah, and we should probably throw in those parachutes before I forget. That would be a useful thing to have for sure. So we're going to send in a couple of parachutes here. I want a couple of drogue chutes. So we're going to put in... Yeah, that's the Mark 16 regular chute here. This is the Mark 25 drogue. We're going to put in... Oh, this is a nose cone variant. This is the radial mount. Okay, so the radial mount drogue chutes are going to... That's the size of the radial mount drogues? Okay. We're much smaller than I'm used to. I'm going to put a pair of radial mount drogues here. I want snapping on. Thank you very much. I do not want to be blocking this hatchway. So that's the main concern right now. So I'm going to put then a pair of radial mount regular chutes. I'm going to put those, instead of being up here, I'm going to put them down here. And those should probably move into their own stage. So these are the drogues here, and then I want the mains to be up over this way, something kind of like that. So in theory, we should not be blocking the hatch at all. And we can test that once we put this out on the pad. Okay, let's see if that is any better on the detachments. So first things first, let's put this out on the pad. And let's have Jeb EVA just to verify that the EVAing works. It would be very bad to have that not work. Okay, I don't know why these all just suddenly detached. I guess maybe the weight was too much for the decoupler to handle. But let's have Jeb EVA quick. Yeah, Jeb can EVA. So that is noted. Now, let's revert that back to the VAB. And we should probably strut all of the SRBs together, I think, in order to solve that problem. The strain was too much on the radial decoupler, I suspect. Because sometimes this thing gets put on the pad in some very strange ways. The weighting can be pretty uneven. So I want to hop down over here, and I want to make sure that we have struts connecting. This should be in 6x symmetry. Connecting here and here. And here and here. And then the same thing over here. And same thing over here. There. That should hopefully solve that problem. Let's save that, and let's put it out on the pad again. Let's see if it falls apart. But I'm guessing the problem was the weight of the overall rocket was too much for those decouplers to handle. Although that doesn't really explain very much. Okay. I'm noting that the struts weren't properly connected there, and then everything just kind of fell apart and exploded. Okay. So why is that happening? We might need to move up the SRBs a little bit, because all of our weight is currently resting on the SRBs. The other thing we could attempt to do is... Well, actually, let's take a look here. So all of the weight is resting on the SRBs. I noticed that these these struts, they weren't actually connected when we put it out on the pad. So that was interesting. I'm wondering if the problem is the clipping together here. It's a theoretical possibility, I think. Okay. I want to put it out on the pad one more time and just see what happens. Okay, so we're on the pad. Note that a lot of these decouplers just cease to exist. And then we just start being made out of pure explodium. And everything is, like, going all over the place. Structural failure on linkage between TT38X and S3-2800. So yeah, I'm guessing that that is the overall problem here, that we've got too much weight on these radial decouplers. So it's interesting that that's happening now and that didn't happen previously, because it's the same, actually has less weight on the radial decouplers, now that I think about it. So I'm wondering if we've got an issue with our strut work internally. That's definitely intriguing. No doubt about that. Let's hop in here. These struts are set up correctly. We're strutted inward over here, but we are not strutted inward over here from these guys. Ooh, okay. Gotcha. So that's going to be a big part of it right there, I'm willing to bet. So we need to strut this in. This needs to be in 6x symmetry. When I duplicated it, I expected the struts and the fuel line to duplicate as well. That appears to have not happened. So instead, what we need to do is come down here and make sure that this is strutted inward. Sure, that's a little high, but whatever. And then we need to run a fuel line here. So that needs to go under fuel and fuel line. That is going to connect from here to here. That's not exactly where I want it to go. I guess that'll work. And then a fuel line running from here. This guy connects over to this one, so we might as well connect it here. Okay, so something kind of like that. Okay, so now we have struts here. We do not have struts here. So that is definitely something that we want to put in here. This might be part of the reason why this is happening. I'm not entirely convinced it's the entire reason. But we can do something like that. Okay, let's put this out on the pad and see if that breaks it. With the extra structural support going inward, we should be in a better position, in theory. Emphasis on in theory. Does this fall apart on the pad? Maybe. I think it's already breaking. Frame rate is incredibly low right now. I have no idea what's happening. Yeah. Okay, so that's falling apart on the pad. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to work on trying to fix this. We're definitely seeing a structural failure between a TT38X and an S3-28800. Which is, of course, very interesting. It's claiming the entire vessel was destroyed. It's now tipping over. But yeah, that's very interesting. We are definitely seeing the SRBs detach, but the other modules are not, in fact, detaching. So the SRBs are failing to hold the weight, and we can fix that. We'll just have to move them up a little bit, I think. I think we should have the majority of our mass be resting on the larger engines. I think that's the core issue here. So if we were to hop in here to the VAB, I want to get this problem fixed. We're not going to be able to do the full test flight before next episode at this point, but I absolutely want to get this problem fixed. And that pretty much means we need to lift up these SRBs so that weight is evenly spread, right? So we need to go into rotate and translate mode. I want to grab this guy here, this decoupler, and I want to lift this until these guys are pretty much even. About like that. Then we want to do the same thing on these other decouplers. So the next one would be this one here. We just bring that up to about even there. I think one more tick upwards. Yep, that is correct. And then we need to grab this one over here. I'm like 99% sure that this is the problem. Okay, I'm noticing that this one is slightly lower. Well, this one's actually slightly higher. Downward you come. Okay. So they should be pretty much sitting on these engines now, with these there if the rocket starts to lean. In theory, that might do it. Let's put that out on the pad and see what happens. We're not actually going to launch this until next episode at this point, though. Okay. Does this fall apart? Well, the frame rate is inauspicious. There's a lot of wiggling going on here. Okay, it's definitely just coming apart. Okay. So, I'm not sure what's causing this. I'll have to experiment with it, and I think that's going to be an off-camera thing. I'm not sure why it's falling apart right now. It might have to do with the clipping at the bottom of the SRBs, though. Although, I don't know. I'll have to experiment with that. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, I will attempt to have a functioning rocket to put on the pad to test. That would be a good thing. For all I know, though, just restarting the game might fix it. Sometimes in KSP2, that happens. We'll see. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamers, Shadow Wolf, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.